is a real gift in my life. I got to know her through her sister by way of the internet. I've never met her sister, Kirsten, in person, but it just so happened to come together that Michelle lived in the, almost, well, doesn't live, but works in the very same town that I work in. And through that connection, we got to know each other. And Michelle is really the reason why I joined this Toastmasters group, even though she only came back 1 week ahead of me. So with great appreciation for Michelle, I introduce you.
Today I'm going to ask you all to do something that in society we're kind of told not to do. But I'm hoping that we'll be sort of iconoclastic today and that we'll learn to think inside the box. So imagine with me that you are a doctor. For me, that's thinking inside the box already. Imagine with me that you're a doctor and you have a patient that you're going to see for the first time. You're reviewing his chart. And you see that 10 years ago he had been in a motorcycle crash. A result of that crash was that his right arm was damaged, no longer worked, and he received severe nerve damage as a result. After recovering from the crash, he found that he was in excruciating pain from the nerve damage, and that continued. And about 18 months later, he and his physician decided they would amputate the arm in the hopes of not only unencumbering him with the useful limb, or unuseful limb, excuse me, but also in the hopes of relieving him from the nerve pain, only to have him find that the nerve pain continued. Only now it was a phantom limb pain, and for the most part was incurable. So now he's shown up in your office about 10 years later in constant excruciating pain and is hoping that you'll be able to help him. Well, that was the scenario that was presented to V.S. Ramachandran, who is the director for the Center of the Brain and Cognition. He's also the Distinguished Professor of Psychology and Neuroscience at UC San Diego. And he's a self-proclaimed technophobe. So he likes these kind of conundrums because it gives him an opportunity to think outside the box. And so he was thinking of all the information that he knows about the brain, things like most people who experience phantom limb syndrome typically will experience itching. They're not able to itch it because, well, it's phantom. They'll experience waving and their phantom limb will wave. They'll experience their phantom limb reaching for a cup. Simple things like that. But some people will experience excruciating pain. Sometimes it's oscillating. It comes and it goes. Sometimes it's constant. And what he found was those people who had constant pain, typically it was because their loss of their limb was associated with an accident and they had nerve damage, and there was a while before the arm or the limb was amputated. So in knowing that, he sort of surmised that potentially, if there was a way for him to convince the brain that the limb was back and that it was pain-free, that perhaps he could trick the brain into letting go of the impulses that it sends. The question was, how do you do that? Well, he came up with a simple idea that he honestly did not think was going to work. And he bought himself a mirror that cost about $5. He put it in a box about halfway, and he put holes in the box. And he said to his patient, all right, put your hands in this box, recognizing that, one of them was a phantom hand. And let's try some things. I don't think it's going to work, but let's try it. So he sticks his hand in there, and all of a sudden the man sees what looks to him like two good hands. And he begins moving them, and he goes, oh my gosh, the pain is gone. And my phantom limb can move. So they were shocked by this. So Dr. Ramachandran told him, take the box home and just fiddle with it, try and see what we can come up with. About 3 weeks later, the guy calls him and he says, it's gone. My phantom limb is completely gone and there's no pain. Well, he was surprised. They were all surprised because everybody knew, including the patient, that it wasn't his real hand. So he had a couple other patients that had phantom limb syndrome that he also ran through the paces. Enough, they all received well, they all became pain-free. So he wrote a paper expressing the findings that he had found, and other people then replicated this and found that, in fact, it's true. You can trick the brain into thinking that your phantom limb is there, to the point that your brain has, it becomes a conundrum. It looks at the hand and says, oh, it's there, but in reality it knows that the hand is not there. So pretty soon it goes, oh wait, I see a hand, but I feel nothing in relationship to a hand. Therefore, it just cancels it out, and then it removes the limb from its repertoire of sensory inputs. Other people then tried it for other type of things. There's a thing called regional complex pain syndrome, which is sort of a nice little way of saying, gosh, I don't know what's wrong with you, but it sounds horrible. And these are people who had had minor injuries, and even after they were physically recovered, they still continued to experience extreme pain, including swelling and redness in the area. So they found that with the mirror box, they were able to relieve the pain. Sometimes they used like a convex mirror, and they were able to diminish the pain instantly. And eventually, over time, to have it go away completely, they were able to recover. So as I'm reading this, I'm thinking of my husband, who about 6 years ago had hip replacement surgery, and the doctor, trying to be nice to make his leg longer so that it'd be even, he experienced nerve damage. And he was in excruciating pain. The excruciating pain comes and goes, but he's numb from his knee all the way down constantly. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could make a mirror box for him to convince his brain that he isn't in as much pain, or that, you know, he really doesn't have pain. But I've been kind of wrestling with, how do I do this, because it's a little bit different. You know, he really does have pain. It's not consistent. Well, then 2 weeks ago, there was something in the news that talked about an arthritis study that was done, that the mirror box was able to bring pain relief to people with arthritis. And they did this by putting their one hand in the mirror box, and they put someone else's hand in the mirror box. And they were able to do these different exercises, and they saw the healthy hand. So they saw the healthy hand and saw that it wasn't causing them pain, so they were able to diminish their pain by about 3 points on a scale of 1 to 10. If they had a 7, it was now a 4. That's huge. It's huge. So with that in mind, I challenge all of you, any of you who have friends who have pain associated with a limb that previously, before, they have not been able to have any sort of relief, I challenge you all to think inside the box and see if you can come up with a way that you can help them.
Thank you, Michelle. That was a really different gift in that box than I had anticipated.